Good morning. Good morning, and welcome to this month's edition of Healthy Together Mississippi's third Wednesday Parent Resource Chat. Again, my name is Bettina Campbell, and I am the Social Service Coordinator and Medicaid CHIP Assister for Oak Hill Regional Community Development Corporation, which is the parent corporation of Healthy Together Mississippi. Joining us again today is Mr. Thomas Robinson, our Technology and Metrics Director. We want to acknowledge our Executive Director, Dr. Michael O. Miner, and our Program Director, Lottie Miner. As you are aware, our webinars are designed to ensure that we provide current and relevant information and resources that uplift parents and other child care providers with practical tools, timely resources, and faith-rooted encouragement. So we encourage you to share your Healthy Together Mississippi Facebook pages and our website, www.healthytogetherms.org. Again, that's www.healthytogetherms.org. Well, here we are in May already. And as you know, we try to provide information about different monthly health services. So some of the ones that we've chosen to talk about today is that May is American Stroke Month. Every minute counts when a stroke happens. Knowing the signs of stroke with Be Fast and taking action in the moment matters. So it is important to recognize the warning signs and to call 911 immediately. This can make a difference between whether a person has a strong recovery or whether they're disabled or even whether their life continues. So by learning and sharing the Be Fast warning signs of stroke, you just might save a life from someone having a stroke. Be Fast is an acronym to help quickly identify stroke symptoms. It replaces and expands the older tradition FAST acronym. It includes two critical new warning signs, which is balance and eyes, and is to help catch a wide variety of a different variety of strokes. So when we say acronym, it means that I'm going to tell you now what that acronym stands for. B represents balance. Is there a sudden loss of balance or coordination? When we're talking about E, we're looking at the eyes. Is there a change? Is your vision blurred? Is it double visions? Are you seeing double? Or is there sudden loss of sight altogether? And if so, this could be a warning sign. And when we talk about face, we're looking at whether there's drooping or whether there's asymmetry in your face. Asking the person to smile can reveal if it's sagging on one side. A is for arms and legs. Yes, I said A is for arm and legs. Is there a weakness in your limbs? If you raise your arm or your leg, does one of them drift or seem to go down instead of staying up? That's a concern. S is for speech, slurring words or otherwise having difficulty speaking and understanding others. And T, which is all of them is critical, but this T is really critical, and that stands for time, because you have to get them there in a timely manner, because if they are there in time, some of the things can be stopped or reversed. So we want to make sure that in the case of a stroke, we understand that we're looking for sudden signs and symptoms. Sudden signs and symptoms. And when we see those signs or symptoms, we don't want to delay. Because sometimes we go, oh, is it that or is it not that? That's not for you to figure out. Call the emergency 911. Let them transport you to the medical facility and let them determine whether or not it's appropriate for you to be there, because time is of the essence. So other health observances in May include the National Women's Health Week, which was May 10th through the 16th, and NBC USA Hope's Power to End Stroke Sunday, which was this past Sunday. And we encourage you to reach out and find out more about that so that you can have this information and resources available to your congregation or to your family. And you can all participate in the Power to End Stroke Sunday next year. Finally, the May observance that we have chosen to highlight today is National Mental Health Awareness, which focuses on reducing stigma, promoting mental health wellness, and encouraging access to mental health resources and support services. The 2026 Mental Health Awareness theme, More Good Days Together, encourages individuals to define their own vision of a good day, whether it's calm, whether it's connections, or whether it's manageability, and to work to collectively make more good days for all. It emphasizes personal wellness and community support. The key goals during this week are to reduce stigma by normalizing conversations around mental health and encouraging health seeking without shame, to promote mental wellness, highlight self-care practices and healthy habits as protective factors, and to expand access by addressing barriers like cost, finding the right provider, navigating services, and also connecting individuals and families to resources. And finally, to share information about support groups, crisis service, and treatment options. So that was a lot, I know. And I went through it kind of fast because y'all know I talk fast. But again, uh, today we will be talking about mental health and substance abuse. And so back with us is one of our favorite people, Dr. Don Vereen, to provide the information to help us better understand what that relationship is. And we will explore dysfunctional family roles and how these roles influence mental health and addiction, and why addressing family systems as a whole is vitally important to achieving lasting recovery. So again, welcome, Dr. Vereen. But before we start our presentation, I just want to remind everybody again to please share this webinar on your social media platforms. Then I want you to make sure that you get your pencil and paper ready, because you know that if you've been with us before, that we try to answer all of your questions after the presentation. So let's kind of remind people about who Dr. Vereen is, and for those who've not been with us, to share a little bit of information about him. Dr. Donald R. Vereen Jr. is a psychiatrist and public health expert known for his leadership roles in substance abuse research and national drug policies. He currently serves as director for the University of Michigan Substance Abuse Research Center, and he's a former deputy director of the White House Office of Natural Drug Control Policy. And this was during the Clinton administration. Prior to that time, he served as a special assistant to the Director of Medical Affairs in the National Institutes of Health, also known as NIH, and the National Institute of Drug Abuse, known as NIDA. During his tenure at NIH, Dr. Vereen worked on the development of research strategies to address public health issues like violence, drug abuse, and addictions. From 1992 to 1994, while at the NIH Institute of Mental Health, he was charged with the development of community-based research projects on violence. Dr. Vereen carried this intervention over to the National Institute of Drugs on Drug Abuse, and where he worked on interdisciplinary research projects dealing with the causes and consequences of drug abuse. Again, welcome, Dr. Vereen.
Hi there. It's a real pleasure to be here. And I'm going to pull up some visuals to help with what I have to share with you. There we go. Are we seeing a happy family here? Can we see a happy family?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Campbell. I really do look forward to the challenges that you present to me um, on behalf of the folks that you work with, the folks that you serve. And thank you for that because I get to learn something new, some new things, and I get a chance uh, to put things together in a way that may be helpful and may be more easily accessible in terms of information. Um, in preparing for this week with Mrs. Campbell, it dawned on me as I was taking notes and trying to organize some major points that we've discussed a lot of the aspects of what I'm going to present to you about mental health and mental illness and substance use and substance abuse, all of those things. Um, but through the lens and taking into account the role that dysfunctional families and then individuals within those dysfunctional families can play in the development of a mental illness, the development of substance use, which is a mental illness, by the way. It's not exactly separate. And I I'm gonna draw on and use the same concepts that we've talked about in the past because they're relevant here. They don't always get the attention that they need in research, but my job is to try to put all of that together for you so that I can make a couple of pronouncements and then back them up, and then that generates a time for us to discuss, question, and learn from this session. So having said that, not really having trouble advancing here.
You may have to click the button on the left side. There should be some buttons on the bottom left of the slideshow.
I have the whole slideshow up. Um, let's see. Um, it's just, oh, there we go. Thank you.
Try resharing your screen now.
Yeah, it's still not, the buttons aren't coming up. Oh, I'm sorry, there were some on the left. Oh, there they are. Here we go. Okay. They keep going in and out. I apologize. Anyway, the point I want to make about mental health and mental illness, that's slightly different from how we've talked about it before, is that it's a spectrum. I went to 9 funerals last year. Some of them really got to me. I don't think I met the definition of depression, but I was not my normal self. And yet I was healthy. I was supposed to be sad at those events. Fortunately, I had a family that I supported and that supported me. and the balance between mental health and mental illness may have shifted a little bit. But I'm here today. I'm not overly depressed. I'm able to think clearly and to work with you. But there are some of us where a loss can be overwhelming, and we're not mentally healthy anymore. We've become ill. And somewhere in that spectrum, there's a line where you go from mental health to mental illness. And to be clear, substance abuse, and in particular addiction, is a particular type of mental illness. There's something in our culture, and maybe that's a discussion for a future talk, why substance abuse and addiction are separated out from mental illness. It is a mental illness. Addiction is a mental illness. You've heard me present on that a couple times in the past. So there is this spectrum, and there's a line when you change from one to the other. Let me be clear, there is a line, but that line can move. There are times in your life when you may be vulnerable to a mental illness, and the slightest change or the slightest challenge in your life can tip you over into mental illness. And sometimes you can be really, really resilient for quite a long time, and that line shifts. So try to hold that model in your mind, and that's another way of saying we can all become mentally ill. We can all be mentally healthy as well. And so I'm saying that in part to address the stigma challenge for having a mental illness. It takes the stigma away to a point if we all realize we can all go there. We can all become mentally ill. The circumstances, our social environment can be enough to do that. Psychological issues can do that. Let's say you're being tortured, you're being held captive and you're tortured. That will change your psychology. And then individually, inside of us, there are things that can tip us over into mental illness. We can be born with a propensity to be depressed, born with a propensity to be schizophrenic or manic. That's a quick and dirty way of saying there's a spectrum, and then there are multiple spheres that's outlined in this next slide that you've seen before. This way of thinking about where are we when we say we're mentally healthy, and then where are we when we're mentally ill? And the answer to that second question, where are we when we're mentally ill, is when any one of these spheres, the biological, the social, or the psychological, becomes out of balance with the others, or one of those spheres gets bigger in relation to the other, or smaller in relationship to the other. Notice how these spheres overlap. We talked about that before. And notice where all three of them come together in a balanced way is when we have mental health. So another way of making the point that there is a spectrum and that there is a balance. And notice what is right in the center under mental health. It's family relationships. If that area is, I'll say, small, meaning there aren't very good family relationships. That probably means the psychological area has gotten bigger in ways that are probably less healthy. The social part has the social contribution to the family relationships has shrunk. This is meant to present a model so that when you think about mental health and mental illness, there's a spectrum. There is a spectrum of family relationships as well, from the good to the not so good. And those relationships can change. And those relationships happen in the context of our social environment, including the leadership of our country, which has been tearing some families apart, our psychological state, and what are we born with? What kinds of vulnerabilities, what kinds of strengths, biological strengths, do we possess? And then as individuals, we are members of a team. We are members of a group called a family. And that in itself is a dynamic entity. You could say that the family, at least one of the ways I was taught, the family is itself an organism. And it can be healthy or it can be unhealthy. And it's on a spectrum. And where is the line where the family is healthy and the family is not healthy? If we could use that same analogy. Mrs. Campbell wanted me to talk a bit about the relationship of dysfunctional families and dysfunctional family roles and how those can relate to addiction in particular, but all mental health. And I have a slide I borrowed from somewhere. I couldn't get a clear reference, but this is one of the ways to talk about dysfunctional family dynamics and some of the individual roles. They go by different names. The importance here is that there are these different roles that people can play within a family. And living in one of these roles can by itself set one up to be mentally ill, to look for ways to feel better, because the coping mechanism that's built into the role that one plays in a family isn't working well enough. So I'm not going to go through the individual types of roles, except to say that when you have a family, when you have something like mental health within a social environment that's healthy, the issue of balance, which I've already mentioned, is important. When you see these different roles within the family, it's an attempt to balance out the family. It's an attempt to make the family as whole, as functional as it can be. And yet there's a failure because no matter how hard these different roles, how well they're played, they still can't quite get the family back together again. Each of these roles is held by an individual and sometimes a couple of individuals. A family can have more than one enabler. a family can have more than one scapegoat. But the critical point and where I want to move our discussion is each of these individuals is dealing with stress. The final common denominator here, the final common pathway is stress. When I talked about the spectrum of mental health to mental illness, stress is what helps to move that line in one direction or the other. When I showed you the different spheres that contribute to an individual's sense of mental health, it's stress that stretches or shrinks those different spheres and affects the placement and relationship of all the individual things that contribute to mental health. It's stress. It all will boil down to some form of stress. So keep that in mind. And then the next thing, we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics. Each of these individuals and each of us, when we're trying to experience that spectrum, what is it about us that's able to determine that or to figure out where that line is? We as individuals have brains. It all comes down to stress and how we are dealing with that stress as individuals. And I'm going to reduce this even more to how we see stress, how we see things, how we feel things, how we react to things. It all comes down to our brain. Our brain is functioning somewhere along that spectrum of mental health. Sometimes that brain, our brain, is functioning on the other side of the line in mental illness. And I hope you're continuing to follow me here. So you've probably seen a form of this slide, which is a way of saying, you know, our brains are pretty sophisticated. They allow us to see. They allow us to think. These brains, our brains, allow us to feel. And we know enough from science and from research to know where in certain parts of the brain these things live. There are pathways. And I've just, this slide shows a few of those. And some of them are quite sophisticated. We have an area of the brain that is so highly developed that it squelches our ability to do or say embarrassing things, or to do things that we really want to do but are against the law. Our brain can do very sophisticated things like motivate us to do things. And then what happens when we lose that, motivational drive? Because it's attached to inhibitory control, it overlaps with that, and it overlaps with our ability to feel reward. You can see already that when things get out of balance in our brains and we can't compensate, we can't redirect, that's what helps move us along that line into mental illness. What happens if we're in a social environment like our families? We have these memories. There's a whole system, a couple of systems that overlap for memory and learning. We see dad beating mom. We see someone shooting someone else in our environment, in our neighborhood. Those memories are attached to feelings, and they're out of balance to how we can feel good, how we can make ourselves feel good. Those traumatic memories can make us not want to do anything, just withdraw, just shut down. Those memories may make us break out and act on the outside. And those memories, in that case, shrink our ability to inhibit those tough and I'll say bad behaviors. But you can hopefully understand what the basis for those bad behaviors are. The person isn't bad. It's the circumstances that have changed their brain, and they can't behave in a way that is more balanced. So having said that, one of the things our brain is smart enough to figure out is, well, what can I do to rebalance things? If you've got these intense memories that you cannot help your own reward system to soothe or to help you forget, well, you can drink alcohol, you can take cocaine, you can inject heroin, because that'll turn on the reward system. That'll help you forget. That'll help you ignore those memories. But then what happens when you're taking something that's injecting into and expanding the reward system? Pretty soon, that gets out of balance. And then you have a whole nother set of new imbalances going on. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm hoping that I've been able to communicate not only the complexity of all that's going on, but how these different things are related to each other. And I focused on the brain here, but hopefully by focusing that way, you can appreciate how things happen in the social sphere as well. And if we take the level of the family, something going out of whack, someone getting sick, someone getting addicted, causes the rest of the family to act differently within that family dynamic, within that family system. And others take on roles to try to rebalance where the family should be going. And in the end, it doesn't end up working out because there have to be other interventions. There have to be other corrections, or there needs to be help with the other corrections that were attempted. So I'm gonna stop there because I've gone over a bit, and let's have a discussion. If there are any questions, if you need a clarification, or if you have a comment about all of this, and you have a specific question about tying this to dysfunctional families, we can then have that discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Vereen. And you hadn't really gone over, but I'm going to ask some questions, and hopefully this will kind of help other people to figure out some questions they may want to ask. So, and it was very insightful and kind of reminded me of some things that I had deliberately put on the back burner. So
I think that happens a lot with us.
I think that we all have uh, some families that we have experienced either substance misuse or abuse, and also maybe having some mental challenges going on. And we've taken, as I said, we've taken on some of those roles to try to adjust, and they may not have been very helpful for us in the long run. But so I wanted to ask, what are the primary neurobiology, genetic, or social, cultural, and environmental factors that link mental health disorder and substance abuse use disorder?
Okay. Great question. Some of those are in the slide that I showed with all of the different spheres, because they're all there, but you're asking about specific genetic issues. And I think we'll start with the neurologic genetic issues. And I'll try to answer the question this way with a little bit of a story or an observation. When I was born, I smiled a lot and I loved feeling and touching other people. I was born with, I don't know, there was something about that turned on my pleasure center. My youngest brother, and I'm not talking bad about him, though it's the truth, he will admit this, he couldn't sit still. His arms were all over the place. Basically, I want to say our biologies were different. I could tolerate some things that he couldn't tolerate. I was born with those. Whatever the combination of genetic information I got from my dad and my mom came out in a different combination than it did from my brother. Now, neither one of us are substance abusers. However, what if one of my parents died early on and I didn't have that hugging and need to be touching other people that my brother didn't have to have? I'm missing that closeness, that physical, almost sensual thing. That biology has gone unmet. And I may approximate getting some of that back when I learn to sip somebody's drink. And that effect of the alcohol on my little brain made me feel really good. Whereas with my brother, he wouldn't have been attracted by that as much, although it might have calmed him down and made him sleepy and he would have slowed down, but he doesn't like that. He wants to be active all the time. We have two different vulnerabilities that can be inborn. To be more specific about these factors, what if somebody is born with taste buds, the proteins and chemicals that you're coded for with your genes? You're born with taste buds such that when you taste gin, and I know most of you have tasted it, tastes like sweet Kool-Aid or sweet tea. And you could just drink it and drink it and drink it, and then you get high from drinking all of it. Versus some of us, I'm one of those, when I taste gin, it's among the nastiest stuff I've ever tasted. The chemical reaction is something that is, you have a genetic basis for that because it involves chemicals and proteins in your taste buds. Two different people, two different genetic makeups. One genetic makeup makes someone vulnerable for addiction. because they'll drink the alcohol to a point beyond that beyond the point they should be drinking. Another quick example, some of us are born with a pleasure center that's kind of normal. There are things that make you happy and things that make you sad. There are some people where nothing satisfies them, or you got to do so much extra to get them to feel good. Those folks may be vulnerable to drug abuse and addiction, because what all drugs do is they turn on the pleasure center. They give you a boost of dopamine, and that counteracts not feeling so good. And so if you're born with different levels of how you're able to experience pleasure, that can be one can be put you at risk for becoming addicted. The environmental factors you included in that, Mrs. Campbell, they're the same. Some of us, we see the dysfunction happening in the family and we remain balanced. Some of us are in the dysfunctional family and it's too stressful for us. We might run away. We might self-soothe with substances. I gave the example of dad beating mom. When you have these horrific, nightmarish memories, you want to push them away. And so you're vulnerable to substance use because there are substances out there that can calm and push away and blunt those memories. So I hope I got to most of the aspects of the question.
I think you did, and in fact, I think you even did a good job of answering how those role expectations in the family can exacerbate mental symptoms and increase substance use.
Because of stress. You're stressed out. When there's a misbalance, you want to live this way, the family needs you to do this. That's where the stress comes in, and it moves that line. It moves that line.
Yeah. And it kind of helps us to determine as individuals what role we're going to play in the family. Either we choose that role or the role is assigned to us. But it does, and that can have what I wanted to ask you next is how can an early identification of mental health and substance abuse use risk preventing the development of dysfunctional roles?
Okay. A first pass on that question, a first take, is that the earlier you identify something, it's much more likely that it won't be as serious. The later you wait to diagnose something, the more damage may be done by whatever it is. Now, I'm being very general here, but you take a cancer diagnosis. It's so much better, so much easier, and it's so much more beneficial for the person who has cancer to have it diagnosed early. It won't be as big. You diagnose a psychiatric issue, let's say a psychological imbalance early, you address it early, it won't get as big. It won't cause as much damage to the individual and the family that the person is living in. It won't affect the family as much because it didn't get bigger. And often when these things get bigger and harder to deal with, that's what forces the family into these different roles to try to to try to deal with that mental illness or that abnormality in the family. Because what comes along with the mental illness is bad behavior that's challenging to deal with. So by addressing it early, the person involved gets help faster, earlier, and presumably will find a healthier life faster. The longer it takes, it may create more complicated things. Once you've identified what it is and then you try to fix it, imagine all of the complicated changes, both within the individual and in the individual social sphere, how all of that's got to be fixed. Talk to someone who's been in 12-step or Opiates Anonymous. This isn't just about alcohol, but in the 12-step program, they have to go back and take into account all the things that they messed up because of their behavior. And it may have messed up a family. And you have to go back and you're supposed to apologize to each of the individuals and the family as a whole. So this is my answer is a similar one that we talked about when we talked about chronic disease, and one other time when we talked about long COVID. The general idea that if you address something early, or you prevent it in the first place, any of the consequences or any of the damages that happen later, there are fewer of them if you identify and address it early. And there's less damage and increased recovery. There's an easier recovery.
Thank you so much for that answer. And there's an answer that I see to the person who put it in the chat. I will answer that question. But first, I did want one more thing, Doctor. What role can the community or the workplace or family intervention play in promoting healing and role functioning?
There are two things that come to mind. The first is having information. Knowing that there are mental illnesses out there and knowing that there is mental health out there. And I would argue knowing that there is a spectrum and that people have different thresholds in which the stress that they're under may tip them over. What was the second part of the...
I wanted to know how can it help heal, promote healing? And I think you've answered the question for the functioning. Okay. The question was, what role can community, workplace, or family intervention play in promoting healness or healthy role functioning?
Yeah, the community can provide the resources, all the things that you've talked about in addressing Mental Health Awareness Month. Making the resources available, making it communicating to people that there are resources. If there aren't resources, well, sometimes that's important to know also. Hey, they're not here. Is there somewhere else you can go and get them? The communities themselves can recognize the importance of promoting wellness. So what does the community do to promote those things? Are there social gatherings, social things for the community? Are there opportunities the community can provide for healing, to promote recovery, to take away stigma? Those things work best at the community level. It's great within a family if you're not stigmatizing the family member or members that have mental illness. But when that community member goes out in the public, it's wonderful if the stigma is not there in their neighborhood. It allows them to be stronger. And all of that comes with knowledge. The first point that I was making, there has to be awareness, accurate awareness. You know, you can be aware of something and treat it like dirt. It's no, you have to have a realistic, thoughtful way of using that information to promote the health. And the last thing I will say about the promotion of these things is that they're often, it's hard to measure, you know, if there is promotion, you know, if there's actually been help, you know. So a community will say, and this did happen to me. Oh, Dr. Vereen, you know, you all keep coming in and saying we need a violence prevention program. We need a pool. It gets hot here in the summer. We need a pool. Our kids need to go there. And I realized they were absolutely right. The community needed the pool. And you know what? You build all kinds of things around that pool. Swimming lessons, the kids having a good time, which is a health promotion kind of thing, an opportunity to have fun, and addressing community challenges. Well, the pool building is a place where you can meet, because there wasn't a place to meet before. You can go there after school, before school, during school. The community needed a pool. And it was the basis for all of the other things that needed to be built to support the community.
So I really like that example because it tells you that we as professionals, as researchers, as scientists, we can think that a community needs whatever, but if the community doesn't buy into that, it's no good. And so that's one of the reasons I really like the fact that Oak Hill does these webinars, because it provides education. It provides the opportunity for people who may not have even thought about what they need, to now think about what they need. And if they thought about it, to share it with us so that we can possibly help them to find the resources that they need to meet the community need. So again, we want to thank you, Dr. Vereen, for being with us. And before I ask this next question, I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows that now is the time for them to be able to open up their mics and ask their questions, or if they're on the other social media platforms, to be able to put their questions in their chat, or so that we can make sure that those questions get answered. And I just, before we start that though, I did want to look at what our takeaway for today is, and it's that health, substance abuse, mental health and substance abuse are linked through shared biology, environment, and other mechanisms. And dysfunctional roles often emerge as adaptive responses to these challenges, and an integrated holistic treatment that restores healthy roles alongside mental health and substance abuse use is the most effective path for sustaining recovery. In other words, we treat the whole person. And the whole person is the family. In this case, we want to treat that and make sure that they have the resources that they need in order to become whole and functional again. And it also means working with them as individuals within that family to, again, make sure that those needs are addressed. So there's a question that says, should a person seek counseling after experiencing traumatic events, regardless of thinking that they are okay?
Absolutely. One of the most important lessons that I learned in my training was that when you've had a traumatic event, part of the treatment, if you will, is just sharing what one knows about the biology, the psychology, and the sociology of trauma. Someone has a traumatic event, and you say, oh, yeah, I'm sorry. We've taken care of these issues that were a direct effect that we can see so far of your trauma. But there are still things that may develop along the way. This is what they are. You can do this for yourself if you experience whatever. You should come back if you have this, or this. So in the case of post-trauma, again, I'm going to give a real world example. This goes back about 40 years. In the emergency room I was working in as a psychiatrist, a rape victim came in. She was seen by the surgeon because the surgeon had to give an examination and make some minor, I'll call them repairs. She had some scars and some problems. The surgeon recognized that the scars and potential scars of this as a traumatic event were not addressed in the emergency room. So he came to see me and says, shouldn't I say something to her? Should you see her? I said, absolutely. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, you know, we can help you. And the symptoms of post-traumatic stress may not show up for days or weeks or years. There are some people who don't realize that they had a traumatic event until something triggers it years later. But you tell them up front, you share that knowledge, and we developed a system where we gave people cards. If they had been in a car accident, they were raped, anything that they could be traumatized around, we gave them something physical. Come back to the psychiatry service. We will be here for you. That helped to extinguish some of the stigma. But we made it easy for them to come back. They didn't even have to call their own doctor. They could just come back to the emergency room, and we would address that. So it is very important to reach out. You may not have something that's easy to fix. That's okay. You make contact with the folks that can get you in touch with the resources that you'll need when they come up. Try to anticipate some things. More importantly, this whole enterprise that we're a part of right now focuses on health, not illness. So when you go to see someone, that is an opportunity to figure out the kinds of things you need to keep doing or the new things you need to be doing to support your mental health, to help make you stronger and more resilient so that the trauma doesn't get the better of you later on. So it's an opportunity to actually practice mental health. That's why the early part is good. It's not just about the malady. It's not just about the illness. It's not just about the negative. When you go, you want to spend as much time figuring out the positive and what's going to support you than what's bringing you down. That's the importance.
Thank you so much for that answer. I'm going to ask, are there any other questions? Anybody? Duke, do we have any questions from the other platforms?
I'm not seeing any.
Okay. And are there any questions that anyone else had on Zoom? Please feel free to raise your hand or put it in chat or open your mic and share. Okay. Well, again, we want to thank you, Dr. Vereen, for always being accessible to us. We appreciate it, and we learned, I think, um, a lot today, and hopefully, if there's someone who's here that needs the information that it benefited you, and that if you need us to share it with your family, that you share that there is hope. There are resources that are available in your community or that you have access to that may be outside your community that can help make the family whole and healthy again. And so again, we thank you for those of you who are listening, and we want to at this time do our friendly reminders. And the friendly reminders are that the Mary and Pat Zoom webinar, which talks about Medicaid, Medicare, CHIP, and affordable care, veterans care, to have you so that you can know where you can go to get access for health insurance for you and or your family, will be Monday, June the 22nd. Tomorrow, Thursday, the 21st, we will have talk about real estate. Let's talk about real estate with Area Mays. That will be at 11 o'clock. And we hope that you are again taking advantage of this information that we are providing to you and your family to help you, your family, and the community become a healthier place to live, work, and play. I also wanted to let you know that next third Wednesday Parent Resource Chat will be held Wednesday, June the 17th. It's in support of June's Health Services. Our focus will be on Black men's health. We will have Dr. Derek Griffith from the Department of Medical Ethics and Health Policy in the Perelman School of Medicine at the University of Pennsylvania. And he's the lead author of Move Member, which is the real faces of men's health in 2025 in the United States. It's a report that they've compiled about men's health, and that report was launched in October of 2025, and it's the first report of its kind that describes the state of men's health nationally. So we want to come and hear what he has to say and how we can better support and help our men. So please join us and encourage your friends and your family members to listen in, because again, you can get some valuable information that may save you or their lives, or may help you to lead a more quality life. So you can learn more about us at our website, www.healthymississippi.together.org. We want to once again acknowledge our Executive Director, Dr. Michael O. Minor, and our Program Director, Lottie Minor. This has been a production of the Oak Hill Regional Community Development Corporation, empowering parents and strengthening families in the Mid-South region and across the state of Mississippi. For those of you who are on our who are on other social media platforms other than Zoom, we really do again appreciate your support. We thank you for joining in, and again, we hope that we've shared some information with you that is valuable and that will help you and or your family or your community. We will say to you, have a blessed day today, and certainly enjoy your holiday. And remember to be safe and not drink while driving. Thank you. And so those of you who are on our Zoom, we'll ask that you stay around for a few minutes after we sign off the other social media, so that if you do have questions or you have comments or concerns,